Mic check. It's going. Ready to go? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Joint Village Board and Plan Commission meeting. Today is February 8th, 2023. It's 7 o'clock. I will call the Village Board and Plan Commission meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance and a standing moment of silence. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Roll call and open meeting law compliance check.
President Fortner,
Present.
Trustee Swan,
Present.
Trustee DeGrave,
Present.
Trustee Newman. Present. Commissioner Nowak. Present. Commissioner Rinaldi. Present. This meeting was noticed and posted according to law.
Also, our planner, Sean Malarkey, is here. This will start off with our agenda. If people recall, our public hearing on our proposed zoning code amendments was adjourned last meeting so that the updated version of the proposed amendments could be posted on the website, which I believe they were, in a red line or black line manner. So we adjourned it till today, so I will continue the public hearing from January 11th, 2023. The notice was read at our January 11th meeting and is also reprinted in the agenda for those interested in the exact notice. Planners report, we had that, Sean, last public meeting, and we stopped at public comments and questions. So we'll pick up there if there's any members of the public wishing to give comments on the proposed zoning code. If you raise your hand. Mr. Alex, you gave comments before, but come up again. Unless there's no other public comments. Usually we don't circle back until.
Yeah, that's why I was.
Yeah, that's no one else. Okay.
Michael Alex, S110, W23450, County Line Drive, Waterford. I have to leave after giving public comment, but I did want to at least come in and, don't worry, I don't have more pages of material to go through, but I just wanted to encourage the board and the commission to consider some of those points that I raised at the last public hearing. And I'll just bullet point them out. The transition of authority from the village board to the planning commission, specifically on the item of use regulation. There are a couple of other areas, but that's kind of the glaring one to me. Just this transition from an elected body such as the board to an appointed body such as the planning commission in certain areas is concerning to me. Second would be the additional language regarding rural accessory buildings. Seems to put an undue burden on property owners, and it kind of is vague in how it can or would be enforced, or puts an undue burden on property owners, and I'm not really sure why we have to have that language in there if we do have raised authority currently in the code. And with that, I would just say be careful if we say, well, it's already in there, so this is just kind of adding to it. Law of unintended consequences. This is has a lot more teeth, has a lot more burden again on the property owner to create engineering. It's vague, and what it says, what a use has to be for those buildings. Also, defining what a building is. Is a building a silo? Is a building an old milk house? Is it a lean-to? Those things I think are still very vague. And then finally, the additional consideration that I kind of mentioned is how we treat things like home occupations, contractors' yards, limited family businesses, in-law units, or I would consider them multi-generational housing. These are all things that I think not necessarily going to have to be addressed at this point, but I think if we have a general overarching plan for our village, we need to start to talk about those types of areas as well. I think cleaning up some of the items such as town to village and updating to statutes. I think all of those are overdue and pertinent to do, but I think some of the other items need a little bit more discussion. And then I also just wanted to bring up the standing questions that I've had for a while of when our application materials could be disseminated to board members or commissioners. That's the first question. Then the second question is just is a sign put on a property that's the part of a public hearing that would be discussed as a part of a public hearing. So those are just two questions that I have. And that's the end of my comments.
Thank you. And we did get your email as well, and that was circulated. So, any other members of the public wishing to speak on the proposed zoning code amendments? Otherwise, we will turn it over to Plan Commission members. Questions and comments? Commissioner Noack, Commissioner Rinaldi, do you have anything? Questions? I know the Plan Commission went through this a number of meetings. Yes, Sean?
The one thing that I would add, and we talked about this previously, and I think Mr. Alex mentioned it as well in terms of his report, where he referenced what happens after the public hearing is noticed and so on. One of the changes we made a while back when we looked at conditional uses was to require a sign be put up on conditional uses when a public hearing is basically 15 days before a public hearing is to be held. There's to be a sign put out in front of the property advertising that is, as people drive by. I think that's a good idea. Everybody thought that was a good idea. We had that for conditional use public hearings, but we didn't copy that for rezoning public hearings. So both of them require a public hearing. Both of them is a change in potential use of the property. And so it hasn't made it into our draft yet, but I am recommending at a bare minimum that we copy that over. The signage requirement for rezoning is the same as conditional uses. Something I think we talked about. I know we talked about it after. I talked about it with the village president after last meeting. So it's not in the current draft, but I'd be recommending that at the very least make it into the final version.
And that would be a pretty straightforward change. Quite frankly, when I did talk to Sean about it, and quite frankly, I thought maybe it was already in there. We had talked
Right,
about
it was not, right.
Right. So that would be an easy change. So if it gets adopted, we could just add, with that change. And
Yeah,
get it
the
finalized.
same language from the rezoning, the within 15 days that the signs put out.
Do you need a motion from the planning commission then to recommend that?
I don't know if we need a motion for that necessarily. That could be part of, if you make a motion to recommend approval of the full thing, would be with that change at the same time.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'm just scribbling that down so when we get the motions, I'll add it to the motion that I'll be asking for with the changes discussed by our planner. Okay, no questions.
No.
Jim, you got anything?
No, I'm fine.
Trustee DeGray?
None at this point.
Trustee Newman? Okay. Final comments. Before I close the public hearing, I always, ask for final comments, and we just went around the room, asked the public three times now. So as long as there is no final comments or questions,
I have a question. Are these items done in entirety as a whole package, or are these individual piece-by-piece items? Is this something that can be, if we're adding, the recommendation of the planners, is something that's set in stone as far as what's posted and drafted currently has to be either up or down, or is this something that's up for debate on individual items?
well, it can be, and when we get to our discussion, it can be up for debate and
As far
changes
as-
made
as far
before the zoning, but I was not anticipating going provision by provision. We'd be here till midnight.
Yeah, no, so is it an up or down, like, take it all, or?
It can either take it all with changes, or take none of it, or take this, or take that out. Depends on the motion.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, any further comments, questions? Otherwise, I will close the public hearing. So we'll close the public hearing, and we'll get to discussion and possible action on ordinance 2023-1, amending Chapter 300 zoning code of the village. So planner, we heard from Sean he's recommending a change to the posting of a public, or posting of a sign when there's a public hearing in connection with the rezoning.
Yeah, just for clarification, that's section 300-46B, public hearing for rezoning. So that's where it would go.
Okay, so that with the change as discussed by the planner to section 300-46B. I think we heard from Mr. Alex and members of the public. Some of the items he's raised, we've discussed at length, which would include things, in my mind anyway, the relative authority between what the Plan Commission can do and the board can do. So I think both the board and the Plan Commission have hashed that out. Obviously, there's not necessarily a right answer, and there might be differences of opinion, but I think we, as a body, have settled on that. The rural accessory buildings, the raise authority, that was fixed. And Sean, you had a point at our last public meeting. I think nothing's really changed that much in that raise order. It was contained in two places. You know, the accessory buildings was in section 125-9. That's moved into our zoning code. And, as discussed at our last public hearing.
So everything on accessory buildings got moved over from 125. So that was done, and as part of that, there was a definition in that section for rural accessory structures. So that definition basically got merged with the definition that was in the zoning ordinance, and so that's why that language was brought over. I think though it was slightly modified, and I'm looking right now at the definitions here.
Yeah, I thought you took it out in one place and stuck it in another, so on the red line of the zoning code, it looks like it was added in, when really it was just being moved over.
Yeah, so the rural structure basically got moved and combined with from 125 to the zoning, and so the language that's in the zoning ordinance now is the same as was in chapter 125, except I think the provision about item 3, the structurally sound and demonstrate to the satisfaction of the Plan Commission the stamped report. So that was added after the fact, and we talked about it, and that was added by the Plan Commission and obviously looked at by the board as well. So that was just some background information as to how it got there.
But I guess we did consider it, the home occupation and the other items that Mr. Alex listed off. We did hash those out at length, as I recall, over several meetings and
And in terms of
several
the,
hours. So.
yeah, if I could just speak to the home occupation.
Yep.
I spent a bit of time going through different ordinances for home occupations, and what we had originally in our ordinance was almost nothing. It almost said nothing about home occupations. So I looked at a number of ordinances and combined what I thought was the best attributes. We talked at length about people operating, and I think some of Mr. Alex's comments have to do with, using a Cricut at home or doing other things at home to make things and sell them online. And that's all currently allowed under what we've come up with our new restrictions for home occupation. So we did consider quite a bit. I mean, if there's other things you want to consider from his comments, we certainly can do that, but we did spend a good deal of time on home occupations. That actually wasn't one of our original items that we wanted to tackle when we set out to do the zoning updates about a year ago, but that was based on a petition that came forward, and we realized that section was substandard, and so that's why we spent a good deal of time talking about it. So it is a fairly comprehensive home occupation ordinance that I think is fairly modern.
Further comments on anything in here? Plan Commission? Dan says no. No. Board? Sean, do you have anything more?
In terms of the rest of the comments?
You're right.
I haven't been given direction to review these in detail. I mean, there's about 10 pages of comments here, so I've looked through it quickly, but I don't know if, I can't tell you right now if there may be some merit to some of these things. And so, but the point is, we've spent a year we spent 13 months in this process so far. And so it would be great if we could adopt something here going forward. Not to say there's nothing good in here and we can't make further updates down the road. There are a few other things in my mind that I think we can address and tackle coming forward. And some of the things that he raised are not things that we've even looked at, like the wetland issue and other things that may warrant looking at in the future, but it wasn't something we spent time looking at. And there's a few other things like in-law units and other things that he raised that definitely might be worth looking into, but we haven't spent the time. I think these are all good comments. I don't think we can incorporate all these comments at this point. If there's something that the Plan Commissioner Board wants to address or look at, I'd be happy to weigh in and look at some of these things, but I have no direction on what to do with this. And again, it's been 13 months on the ordinance to this point. It would be nice if we got something adopted, and then next time we crack this open, we can certainly consider
That would be
some of the comments.
my opinion as well. Any ordinance, but specifically chapter 300 is a working document.
Right.
It's,
Mr. Alex spent I appreciate the effort that he put forward. He
For
spent a
certain.
lot of time going through this, but and the public hearing obviously is the time to submit comments. It's a lot. It's a lot to go at the 11th hour to basically look at all these issues again. I still think there's value here and we should definitely look at it, but I don't know if, it's not my call if this is the right time to address each and every one of these issues.
I for one would agree.
Right, it was never in the charge to the Plan Commission from the board to look at something like that, to look at some of these items.
Right.
I know
We
we discussed
specifically
it.
started
We
out with a
spec-
certain subset.
Right, and we specifically talked, we're not touching wetlands.
Right.
And, the in-law suites, the duplexes and things like that, and the accessory building, quite frankly, wasn't, the size and was not touched. So there was specific things the board gave the Plan Commission direction, and we did talk about other items, and we said, as a board, we're happy with the way they are, and it's a targeted charge to the Plan Commission to look at the zoning code and not the entire zoning code.
Right.
And we did, where we felt necessary, go a little bit extra just to clean up a problem like 300-46, for example. That
I
was
think-
not in, So,
We need to concentrate on the comprehensive plan,
the land use plan,
the land use plan.
right, which
And
is on
then-
our business plan it has been,
Right.
for future years.
Because
right.
then we can use that to go back and tweak chapter 300 or anything in it.
Right, as it comes up, looking at a master plan.
Right.
Which hasn't been looked at, and it's been on our radar since 2020, actually. Kind of waiting for the census and,
We're kind of waiting on the county to
And the county.
get their process going too, so we can piggyback on that and some of the background work that they do to save money. So again, I think I will take whatever direction the Plan Commission board give me on this one.
Trustee DeGrabe, got anything?
I'm a little bit lost on this part of it, but.
Trustee Newman? Plan Commissioners, any final words of wisdom, since we did most of the changes? I mean, we proposed the changes to the board and to the public, basically, and the board approved them, but we started off with recommending that changes be made. All right, then I'd be looking for a motion from the Plan Commission to recommend to the village board to approve ordinance 2023-01 with the changes to Section 300-46B, as discussed by the planner, amending Chapter 300 zoning code of the village, subject to legal review. And I think John, on the legal review, has looked at most of this, but it's just a little bit at the end, and maybe it's pretty perfunctory at this point. Well,
I'll second.
any further discussion from the Plan Commission? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is village board action. The village's board has sat through this, and so I would be looking for a similar motion to approve, this time to approve ordinance 2023-01, amending Chapter 300 zoning code with the change to Section 300-46B as discussed by the planner, subject to legal review.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? I note that obviously it's been recommended by our plan commission, so.
None here.
Otherwise, we've had, to me, I hashed it out. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now there's some, what I view as some brother, sister, or tag-along ordinances that we need to consider. One is, and we've mentioned them at the public hearing and in our discussion, is, or on agenda item number 7, Chapter 125-9, which is really Section 125-9, and Ordinance 2023-02. 125-9 is the accessory buildings. That has been incorporated into the zoning code. And so we need to repeal Chapter 1, or Section 125-9, so we don't have conflicting statutes. So I would make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-02, repealing Section 125-9 of the Village Code regarding accessory structures, subject to legal review. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And I made it subject to legal review. I think our attorney did look at that, but in talking with our administrator, we have at least one question to ask about that ordinance. This is a board matter, by the way. Plan Commission, this is just a flat-out ordinance. But it needs to be done because we just adopted 300. It just needs to be done. So any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now, the next one is Chapter 144. That's commercial and industrial development, similarly to the accessory buildings that's in our zoning code now. And again, those were separate, both of them were separate chapters, separate sections when we were under county zoning.
That's right, yeah.
And so now that we're doing our own zoning, it can all be put in.
Where it
Where it
belongs.
belongs.
Yeah, these things belong in the zoning ordinance, and they're only there for you to be able to regulate these things under county zoning. And so with Chapter 144 specifically, we brought that over and rewrote most of it and beefed it up a little bit, so it doesn't apply anymore.
Right, so there would be a real conflict if it wasn't repealed.
Correct.
So I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-03, repealing Chapter 144 of the Village Code relating to commercial and industrial development, subject to legal review. It's a board action. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and again, legal review, because I think we just have that, a question or two for Macy to clean it up if we need to. Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And now we are on to discussion at number 9 on the agenda, discussion and possible action on the certified survey map for Kenneth and Deborah Lang for the property located at W223S9880 Big Bend Drive, Big Bend, Wisconsin, 53103. Tax key VNT is 21139830012. Mr. and Mrs. Lang, you're here?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
This is my wife Deborah on Ken Lane.
Okay, if you could come up and we'll get that microphone, if it's not turned on, turn it on. If you could just, that doesn't sound like it's on. So if you could just state your name and address for the record, and then how we do these is we have Sean, our planner, kick off and give us an overview. We'll ask you if you follow along and agree with what he's saying, and then we, this is a joint discussion between the Plan Commission and the Village Board, because the Plan Commission makes a recommendation, the Village Board take action, and I put them both because we're here for the joint meeting anyway for the public hearing. So we thought, instead of just hearing a Plan Commission matter, since the board was here, we'd do both at the same time. So if you could please state your name and address for the record.
Ken Lang, West 223, South 9880, Big Bend Drive, Big Bend, Wisconsin.
Thank you. Sean, why don't you kick us off?
Sure, thank you. So essentially, they have a 4.7 acre property. It's at the northeast corner of Cartwright Court and Big Bend Drive. The property is 4.78 acres, as I mentioned, and what they're asking to do is to divide it into two lots. There's a 2 acre lot and a 2.7 acre lot. The 2.7 acre lot nearest the highway is where their existing home is, and so that would be maintained on lot 1. Lot 2 would be the new lot. That's the 2 acre lot to the east, the rear of the property. And it essentially boils down to the fact that it's currently zoned AD10, which is the agricultural 10 acre density district. It requires 10 acres gross density for each dwelling unit. Lots can be as small as an acre in size, but so if you had 100 acres under this, you could do 10 lots. Each of the lots could be as small as an acre, but you need 10 acres for each lot that you create. And so they have less than 5 acres. And so the current zoning doesn't allow them to do what they ask. And so in these cases, we usually then look to the land use plan and say, well, could we rezone the property? Does the land use plan allow them to do what they want it to do? The long-term vision allow that. In this case, the land use plan is rural residential, which is 5 acres for each dwelling unit. And so they essentially would need 10 acres in this case to get 2 units out of it under the current land use plan. So they can't rezone it and because the land use plan doesn't allow it. Now, you could potentially change the comprehensive plan, the land use plan, but that's a bigger issue, a bigger deal, a bigger effort. Looking at the current land use plan, everything on the east side of 160, is that mine? Everything on the east side of 164 in the immediate area is all planned for rural residential, which is the 5 acre density, with some environmental corridor thrown in places, and most of the land across 164 is also environmental corridor. Environmental corridor is the same density. It's 1 unit per 5 acres as the land use plan, essentially. So it doesn't get more dense. And about 1,000 feet north of the property here, there's like 4 properties between their property, and as you get closer to the village of Big Bend, then we get into the suburban density residential category, which allows more development. That particular category could get them to what they wanted, but we don't typically look at just changing the plan for one parcel unless it's contiguous to that category, elsewhere. And so we'd have to look at the broader context of all the surrounding parcels to look at potentially changing this. They're not asking for that tonight. They haven't asked for that. They haven't asked for a rezoning. I'm just pointing out potential options here if they choose to go forward. I think the village administrator reached out to them after I sort of gave initial feedback to the petitioners stating what the issues were and asking if they wanted to withdraw their application. They chose not to withdraw the application, and so they're here tonight, I presume, to talk about options. But at this point, the way things stand, based on the timelines and the statutory required timelines, when a certified survey map is submitted, you have to take action with a certain period of time, otherwise it's automatically granted approval. The Plan Commission has to take action by February 12th, 60 days from submittal, and the board has to take action by March 14th, 90 days from submittal. So my recommendation is you need to deny this for the reasons that I mentioned, but the petitioner is here to speak on.
Sean,
Yeah.
don't most people come in, and maybe nearly everyone come in with a preliminary certified survey map?
Not always, they don't always come in with conceptual to the plan commission, but I usually see something, or at least talk with the petitioners before they submit something formal. So they've hired a surveyor here, spent some real money on the survey, but nobody came to the village to ask what the rules were, what they could do. Usually that would have been the time that I said, well, hey, this is what the rules were, but, no one came forward. You submitted your CSM, which is obviously your right to do that, but, no, I hadn't talked to them before I saw it, before Brad forwarded it on.
Right, and we can't, as you mentioned, we do have to take action. These rules are to prevent boards and commissions from just ignoring people forever. And so it's deemed approved unless you take action by these timelines.
Right.
So that's why we're up against the gun. Usually people, can grant us extensions if there's more time needed or if there needs to be changes and so on. But, in this
Correct.
case, you didn't do it. I mean, we're up
Right.
against the deadline today.
Right, so we have to take action today because the plan commission doesn't meet again before the 12th, so, and again, based on the current zoning, it cannot be approved.
Right. Sir, do you agree with everything he's saying? Or
I agree with what he's saying. When we came and got that certified survey and hired a surveyor, would have been the time to say, this is probably not feasible. After that survey was done, this is a neighbor of mine who wants to purchase that land. He was told he needed, besides getting it perk tested, he needed to go get another test for a couple $1,000 for floodwater, 100-year floodwater thing. When he was standing there being told he needed to do that, that would have probably been the time to say, this isn't gonna fly, you probably shouldn't waste your money. I'm just speaking for him. I understand what you're saying. So I look around here, I've been in this town for 26 years. We bought that 2-acre parcel, built our homestead on that land. There was another parcel, I believe 32 acres, to the south of me. We asked about buying some more of that land. At that time, and I can't go back 26 years and tell you who told us that, it was either Waukesha County Parks and Planning, that would always never be more than one shared access driveway off of mine for one residence. Now let's fast forward a little bit. We could have bought more than the 2 acres or 2 acres behind us, but there was no need to. There was only going to be one neighbor with one driveway shared on mine. As the years went by, that shared access driveway turned into a road, which turned my building, which was built per code, non-compliant, from the center line of this road that was supposed to be a driveway.
this road you're talking about is Cartwright?
Cartwright Court,
Okay.
which turned into,
Like a
Argument
little, like a
of-
little cul-de-sac or something.
yeah, me moving my building, or we don't want to go any further than that. So with that said, we had talked again about maybe selling that parcel off at that point. Since we bought the 2 acres, now let's go back to the parcel we bought. I would have bought more acreage if I known what we needed 5. Back then, we didn't need, because it was only going to be one extra residence. Since that road was put in and turned into a cul-de-sac, 2 more homes were built on Cartwright Court, directly across from the property we're talking about. Neither one of those properties is, I doubt if they're 2 acres, 1.3. So it went from never being able to be split, now there's 3 residents on the cul-de-sac, which I understand things change. Then I'm gonna move forward and say, when I bought the land behind me, it was zoned as a piece of farmland. One of the neighbors actually wanted to farm it for hay. We left it alone. That was never joined to my parcel. It was bought as a separate parcel. The village, which was the town back then, sent me a tax thing and said it would be so much easier if we could just put these both on the same tax key so we don't have to send you multiple bills. I never suggested we join them together, so I look at it now, if you were in my shoes, it's not really a split. It should have never been joined together in the first place. So I understand we have minimums with acreage and so on. that shared access driveway, which means it was shared by me and Cartwright, that would have been part of my land, part of his land. Is that the 2.2 of an acre that would have made my lot 5 acres? I don't know. You guys know that stuff. That road is now owned by the city, plowed and maintained by the city. So I look at it, as I looked at it in the past, I'm like, why not sell this piece of land? Let somebody build a home there, let them pay taxes and help carry the burden of maintaining that road. It's nothing that we don't already have. A couple homes here, a couple homes there. We have a tight little neighborhood. We're all good neighbors. We get along, we help each other out. I'm doing this for a neighbor and a friend of mine. So, with that said, I've seen the rules change. I'm going to call them rules, zoning, ordinances, roads, driveways. We've done it before. Why can't we do it again? Just one time. I'm not asking to build a subdivision or multi-purpose. And you're probably thinking, well, why now, after all these years? My neighbor, which is my friend. And I'm looking at you as parents and grandparents. His little girls come by us. They come for lunch. They love my wife. They love playing in our yard. They came to me, they're going through a hardship, and said, Mr. Ken, would it be okay if we built a house in the backyard so we could still live in Big Bend and Village, go to school at St. Joe's? And I said, you know what? I'll fight for you guys. Because these little girls sat in my yard with tears in their eyes, so I'm not trying to pull on your heartstrings, but I'm not asking for nothing that hasn't been done before.
Yeah, I'm not aware of all the history that you just laid out, Sean. I don't know if you can speak to any of that, although I'm not sure that makes any difference to your recommendation, as do, whether he had 5 acres or 4.8 acres. I don't think that matters either. You're saying you have to have 10 acres.
Right, I was going to speak to that. 5 acres doesn't get you anything under the current rules. 10 acres would. You'd need 10 to be able to.
So, okay, I understand that perfectly. When I built my house on 2 acres, what was it then?
When you built I don't know, I'm looking at the certified survey map. It looks like it was recorded in
96?
2002, last certified survey map. You were parcel 1 of that, and then across the street, the large parcel was parcel 2, and then the area between the parcels was there as well. That's currently the road. But at that point, it was 1 parcel in 2002. So before that, I don't know what the history was. But going back 21 years, it was a single parcel. So you're saying before that, it was a small parcel and sort of what you're proposing now.
We bought the 2, built our home and
Right. So at some point in time, you combine them, right? And again, the history, I don't know the history as to why you did it or not.
When did you combine them?
maybe, I think 96 we bought the first parcel. It had to be 3 or 4 years later. Where, in hindsight, knowing what I know now, we could have easily bought 8 more acres and had 10 acres.
Right, but the bottom line is the rules that you say, the rules are what they are. The comprehensive plan is what it is. The only way to make this happen, it cannot. It's illegal to approve this tonight. So the only way to make it happen is to change the comprehensive plan for his property and the surrounding properties. Otherwise, it would be an island in the middle of other properties, and then approve a rezoning and then approve the CSM. And so that's something that could be discussed, but that. There have to be a petition to change the comprehensive plan. Again, I wouldn't recommend it be done just for one parcel. You got to look at the larger area. So that's a public hearing process. There's a class 1 notice that it's a 30-day public hearing notice for that. The rezoning is another 2-week class 2 notice for that, and then the CSM. So again, we looked at this area about 2 years ago. We looked at the comprehensive plan in light of the village of Big Bend, and before we became a village, we were, protecting our boundaries from potential annexations. And so we looked at the area around Big Bend in terms of matching the densities within the village with some of the densities in the town at the time. And so that increased density, that suburban density residential that I mentioned before, which would get you what you need was closer to the village of Big Bend. And so we'd have to look at bringing that further south for, for whatever reason. And again, we haven't looked at this area in terms of where your property, so that's a whole nother process. And it's really, you can submit a petition to change the comprehensive plan, and the plan commission can look at it at that time. But until that's submitted, we can't really do anything about it.
Okay, and legally, I didn't know where to go from here. So what you're talking about is probably what happened from Henneberry, where they built that cul-de-sac and put 4 or 5 homes in there with 1 acre lots. That must have been Vernon, and now it was changed back to Big Bend.
So it's even further south of that. It's so where the village of Big Bend border is, the southernmost Big Bend border, we have some increased density planned for about 1,000 feet south of that, right? And then comes 3 or 4 parcels to get to before we get to your parcel. That's all planned for rural residential, which is the 1 unit per 5 acres. So we'd have to look at changing the long-term density for all those properties to get to your property, basically, because we can't just leapfrog it. So that would be what the petition would be, is to look at all those properties north of yours till we hit the suburban density residential. So that's what you'd have to do. You'd have to submit a petition to change the comprehensive plan, change a petition for rezoning, and then after that would be all done, if it would get done, then would come your certified survey map. But there's no guarantees, right? It all has to be looked at and considered, and I don't know,
Well,
no
yeah,
one's looked at this in any detail yet, so we can't really provide any feedback on what you're asking.
So let me ask you hypothetically. If a purchaser had 8 acres, and he decided, adjoining, he decided to buy those 2, which gave him 10, can he split those 2 off and still sell his 8?
No. No. Well, you could sell it, but it couldn't be developed. So the way the zoning works is basically you can have lots of small as an acre, as long as you have 10 to start with if you're going to do 2 splits, right? But then the whatever's left over has to be deed restricted from further development, right? That's how it works. It's basically, okay, you get your 2 small lots here, whatever's left over cannot be divided, under that current zoning district. And so he could sell it if he wanted to, but it wouldn't have any development rights, wouldn't have any value.
If he sold it to himself? Could he build
Sure.
on it?
Doesn't matter who, it doesn't matter who owns it,
So
it
he
just can't be
still couldn't
developed.
build on it.
Right.
So there's a way to do it, I guess the bottom
There's
line.
a path
way
to get to
it.
do what you want to do. It's a
And-
3-step process.
And we did just come out of a public hearing and a discussion on our zoning code amendments with the express, I think some of our trustees even said it, that we really ought to look at our comprehensive land use plan, and this would be one area that we could look at as part of that plan.
Right. So, but there's no definitive timeline on that
Right.
process
We haven't
yet.
even
We haven't
started.
That's months away.
Right.
But anybody can petition to change the plan, and so if you want to do that, that's your right to do that.
Is there, let me ask, is there a guideline of step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 that I could get so I knew how to proceed?
Well, the village administrator could walk you through that, but it's 3 parts, just make it simple. It's the comprehensive plan map amendment, it's the rezoning to get you the density you need, and then it's the CSM, which you already have done, so that's done. So it's only 2 parts that you haven't done yet,
Okay.
so. You get the last part done.
Ah, that's a guy, right? Start at the end and move backwards. All right, I understand.
So it may be beneficial too, because we'd have to plan the properties that are north of you as well. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 properties that are north of you. That would have to, the plan would have to change for them too, to reach your property to the south. So if you want to speak with them too, to see what their support would be to change the plan for more density, that may help. Again, there's no guarantees because it's a public hearing process and we haven't looked at it or discussed it, but, that couldn't hurt.
But that would be part of the public hearing.
Part-
That's why
part of-
we have public hearings.
That's right. To have them speak at or provide documentation or something written as part of the public hearing.
The board and the plan commission has to come up with a proposal so people know what is being thought about, so,
Right.
Understand.
yeah. Any other questions? It's a joint meeting, joint discussion here from the board or plan commissions to Sean or?
I can see Mr. Lang's point there. We do have that Cartwright lane that went in there. How that happened, I'm not sure.
It was under county zoning, obviously, right?
How we got the smaller lots to the south, it would make sense, I think, to proceed with some changes there. Not only dividing his land, but the one to the south of Cartwright, on
Could-
the southeast corner, that could be divided also. And possibly something back there. We're underutilizing the road that's there.
Right, and it's too bad this didn't come up when we were looking at, in and around, around Big Bend, when we were looking at the densities there.
We
could
just
have
didn't
gone-
go this
could
far
have-
south,
Yeah,
right.
we could have gone another 1,000 feet south or whatever it is, Sean. But we didn't. And Dan, what you're talking about is when we do pick up the comprehensive land use plan, we ought to, you've already identified this area as potential for changes.
I can see a bunch of mistakes that have been made there in the past, and maybe this would be some way of correcting it.
Right. Well, we were under county zoning for,
I know, I remember.
yeah,
Lots of chit chats, but I think it was. that
right, and
Walker-
then we finally,
Waukesha?
oh yeah, we were 02, 04, we were still under, we finally got out from under it, but not completely, from county zoning as a town. And then when we became a village, then we are out from county zoning. So that's one of the benefits of being a village.
If, I'm just throwing this out here and,
So,
let this drop if you don't want to go this path, but the plan commission or board could also petition to amend the map as well. So if you had in mind to take a look at this area in more detail over the next couple of months, we could look at that as well. It doesn't have to come from the petitioner, although, it is his project.
right. And that's not on the agenda tonight, so
Right,
that would have to be a future agenda item.
right.
Otherwise, Sean, following along here, this would be Plan Commission, we'd be looking for a motion that the Village of Vernon Plan Commission recommend to the village board denial of the certified survey map for Kenneth and Deborah Lang for the property located at W223 S89880, S9880, Big Bend Drive, VNT 211-398-3012, because the existing zoning of the property does not allow the requested density and the comprehensive plan future land use map does not allow consideration of a rezoning to a district that allows the requested density.
I will make that motion.
There's a second. Any further discussion, Plan Commission? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now for the board. We'd be looking for a similar motion, but it'd be a motion to deny the certified survey map for Kenneth and Deborah Lang for the property located at W223 S9880, Big Bend Drive, VNT 211-398-3012, because the existing zoning of the property does not allow the requested density and the comprehensive plan future land use map does not allow consideration of a rezoning to a district that allows the requested density pursuant to the Village Plan Commission's recommendation. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Discussion.
The question, do we have to deny it or can it just be postponed? And my second part of that question is, does it incur additional cost on Mr. Lang's part when he gets to that step 3 and has to submit this CSM again?
In terms of the application fee?
Application fee or any other cost associated with?
Well, you can only, so you have to take action, the board has to, so the plan commission's already made a recommendation, but the board has to take action by March 14th unless the petitioner grants an extension to something in writing that grants an extension of review of this until some point in the future. So they could do that. You could grant it, I don't know what the time frame would be, but that certainly could happen. In terms of the fees, I mean, they'd have to resubmit another application fee if this is flat out denied. My staff report is essentially what it is now, but if it comes back under a different context with a comp plan amendment and rezoning, it's all gonna be, I have to spend time on it anyways, because the scenario is different. So it's really only the application fee that is being
Right, and
saved.
he's already paid for the surveyor, already paid for the CSM, and he's got a nice, CSM.
Yeah, the CSM is, and we haven't reviewed that in detail, for technical purposes, because it didn't make any sense to spend money
Right.
doing that yet, but
Right.
if you pushed it out into the future, he'd be saving an application fee for the
How much is that
CSM.
application fee? So, decent chunk of money.
So, that's-
So,
But we've
Help-
asked
help me
for
under-
an extension, and he hasn't,
well, we asked him
maybe
for,
he's changing his mind, but
we talked about withdrawal, withdrawal,
a
so,
flat-out withdrawal would have been okay.
yeah, so we could
Because the
say,
extension is to what? As you've outlined, we have no,
he'd be extending review of the CSM to get everything else in place potentially, right?
but to
So,
win though.
it would have to be like 6 months or something.
You need that in writing?
It would have to be in writing. But again, this is up to the board, because we're at the place where we're making.
we're having discussion, yeah, okay.
The board would just well,
We'd have to shoot down this,
honestly, the board has till March 14th to do anything. So you could just don't do anything tonight on this if you wanted to, and wait for the petitioner to submit an extension if you wanted to, and then take action before March 14th.
okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Right.
Does that make sense? So you could, if you get an
Yeah, we don't
extension.
have to take action tonight.
Right.
I just, as I set forth earlier, because the board's here, we could have, in a normal case, a CSM would have came to the next board meeting, not at a joint meeting. It would come
Right.
to the next one.
Right.
But since we were here,
Okay,
You could
we were-
table, you
All
could
right,
table
so-
it to the next board meeting if you wanted to.
okay, thank you. I think you answered my question.
so that's a possibility too, but we have a motion made and seconded
Seconded.
at this point.
So we do need a vote. You have,
Dylan, do you have any discussion?
No, I would, obviously, I would vote to table it if somebody made that motion.
All right, well, do you have anything further?
no,
So we have a motion made and seconded to deny it. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
aye.
Aye.
So the motion fails. We're missing one board member. So is there another motion?
I'll make a motion to table it, to give the petitioner time to submit an extension.
So you want to table it until
The next board meeting?
next board
Got
meeting
enough
next
time?
week? Okay. So it would be a motion to table what are we calling it, Sean? The certified survey map for Kenneth and Deborah Lang until our next regular board meeting.
Right.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Trustee Slaney?
Yeah, trying to figure out how to question this. The planning commission already made the recommendation to deny.
It has to. It's run out of time.
Right. And there's not gonna be another planning commission meeting.
Right.
Without our next board meeting.
Right,
So,
doesn't matter
Next board
though.
meeting would just be to give him time to submit his extension, which we would then approve. right?
yeah, but you already have a motion to deny.
Right, but the board can ignore the plan commission's recommendation.
That's true.
So let me clarify about what the board would do at the next meeting. So March 14th, I'm sorry, when's the next board meeting?
February 16th.
Yeah, so February 16th, we get the request for an extension of review from the petitioner. I don't know how many months it's going to be, whatever it is. The board doesn't have to do anything. They don't have to accept that at all. Basically, no formal action has to be taken. All you have to do is acknowledge that you received the request. And I guess, yes, you do have to say, yes, we won't take action on this until the expiration of the extension would take place. And so if we can get all our
Which
work
allows
done.
it to go back to the planning commission, correct?
No,
For step one, step two?
No.
no, not unless the application, so on this particular application,
Okay.
The plan commission's already made its recommendation, so the plan commission doesn't get to look at the CSM again.
Okay. So they would have to submit another application for this to work anyway.
No, the plan commission would look at the comp plan amendment, would look at the rezoning, the board would look at both of those too, but once we get back to the CSM again, the plan commission's already made its motion on that particular recommendation, so you just have to ignore it and under the circumstances at the time and move forward. So I think that's how it would work. It's a little messy, it's a little bit messy.
If you think changes to the CSM though, because you haven't looked at it for, to me, legality reasons.
Right, that's true.
No technical comments, no legal review, no nothing. And
Right.
why would we do that if it was just going to be denied? Why would we increase his bill by,
Right, I haven't spent
That'd be
any money
silly.
doing that.
it'd be
Right,
silly to do that.
right.
And they don't.
So that's true. It-
Timeline of when we would,
See, that's my problem with, when you say you can extend it, as opposed to withdraw it, you can extend it to when? To when
I-
all of this is done?
I don't know if there's any.
5 years from now?
I don't know if
3
there's any
years from
court
now,
cases
2
that
years
speak
from
to
now?
that. Attorney Macy might know, but I don't think there's anything in the statute saying when you can, it's just by mutual agreement, basically, that you can extend that review, that 90-day review period.
Well, I guess the legal question be, does it need to be extended to a time certain? You know, a date certain.
Yes, yeah, the petitioner has to say, we're requesting extension of review till, however long it's gonna be. And I don't know how long the comp plan amendment would take, or the rezoning would take. We just
Right.
don't know.
We just spent 13 months of trying to amend our zoning code. That comp plan might be a more difficult.
But Brad's point about changes to the CSM might need to change based on,
Absolutely, it might.
So,
Absolutely, it might. That's why people come in for preliminaries, right?
Right.
For conceptuals.
so could another option be that we could waive that application fee when that comes through? Because all we're talking about is the application fee.
How much time do you have to review this CSM to determine if it's legal?
I gotta give it to our surveyors and, they're very busy and so it might take a week or two for them to look at it.
I mean, time, billing time, not,
Oh.
not review time.
I honestly don't remember. It might take them an hour or two to go through with the detail, make sure everything closes and,
Which is probably close to what the application fee would be
right.
anyways. So even to determine if it's legal, you would be spending the same amount of money for a new application. You get what I'm saying? So the cost.
No.
So if it costs $200 to have the CSM reviewed to determine if it's even legal, because if it's not legal right now, then we're back to square one. If it's legal, he's already spent the $200 to review it, and so, or you're spending $200 to review it and it's legal. Either way, you're still spending $200, but if you spend the $200 and it's not legal, now you're gonna spend another $200 for the application fee no matter what.
Well, the legal question, it's not, we know it's not legal because of the zoning ordinance,
Yeah.
but it's really just to correct any technical deficiencies and make sure the boundary closes, make sure everything's on there that's required by state statutes and all those things. So it's very minor things, but something that has to be done as part of the CSM review,
And they typically find mistakes. I mean, there's always some comment.
right? So you mentioned about waiving the application fee.
But that's a
Because
board
that-
matter. Sure,
that's-
that can be done by a board. I mean,
Okay.
I mean, we waive fees not all the time. We don't like doing it, or at least I don't like doing it.
Well, right, but in this particular instance, that's the,
That's up to the board to make that.
yeah, that's the
determination.
one issue, I think.
So just let it die for now.
I kind of feel like it's gonna get much more complicated unless you let it die and then just relook at it with
It's
everything.
easier to start from fresh, you're not trying to put it into the box that it is. It's like when we did the zoning code. When a proposal was brought forward, the boards voted black and white, yes, this is, and that's what we're turning this into, is black and white, where if a new application is submitted, changes can be made prior to plan commission approval, prior to coming to the board, if there is a legal deficiency or if there's change that needs to be made.
That makes sense. Well, in that case, can I then withdraw my motion and then make a motion to deny it?
No motion was ever, there was no second motion.
Well, we had a motion to deny that failed on a 2-2
Right,
vote.
but the
then there
same
was a-
person
Then there's
can't
a,
make that
then the
motion.
second motion was to,
Or you can amend.
was to table it until next meeting, which we could table it and just deny it next meeting. We have time,
That'd be fine too. I'd be all right with that.
you know. We didn't even have to take action tonight as a board, like I said. And normally, we wouldn't have, you know, because we wouldn't be here as a board.
As a point of order in Robert's rules, I don't think we could make a motion now to approve it.
There's a
Correct.
There's a motion on the, there's a motion on the.
I know,
Yeah.
but
To table.
if we deny that, and then we can't make another motion, just be, you know, because the first one failed. That's in Robert's rules. So,
So I think
The
there's a
only option
motion
we
to table.
have-
Did you second it?
I seconded
Seconded
yours,
it, okay.
but the only option we have
Just to vote.
is,
Vote
No,
on
no,
it.
no.
is to, vote to
Deny
table it
or
for next
table.
week
Right.
with the intent, so that you know where we're going, to deny it.
Okay.
That's the only legal way to go from now on, anyhow.
So where does that put me in as far as giving you an extension, a letter for an
You
extension?
will have to do that, you have to reapply,
Okay,
you know, going through the three-step process that our planner mentioned earlier.
sure.
And then we could go on from there. But just so that you know, our review of the comprehensive plan is not an overnight deal, you know. I'm not against doing this, you know, in fact, I usually am in favor of,
I understand.
you know. But, you know, it's just a matter of,
Workload.
it's a
time.
precedent-setting possibility that we have to know all the ramifications of that.
It's more of a timeframe because of the notices we have to run, so
Understandable.
it's at least three.
It's,
Three concurrent months, everything goes to plan at a minimum, but most likely, and that's from once we get to the point of scheduling a public hearing for the comp plan amendment, to get to that point, is likely a month or two at a minimum.
right, yeah, and the notice for the comp plan is 30 days.
Plus, we would send notices to, or the class two notice, so yes. So
Class one for comp plan, class 2 for zoning.
So do you suggest I wait until you guys do that before I reapply?
I would, because you, while the members of this bodies have, given some indication of where they stand until they take a vote, nothing would be official. And so if you apply beforehand, and it wouldn't go through, then you would be back at square one, or be back where you are right now.
So is there any way that I will know when it's time to reapply?
For your CSM?
Yes.
Yeah, after you get approval for a comp plan amendment and approval for a rezoning.
Okay.
Because the next question after the village board takes action on this next week, will be for the planning commission to decide, whether we would need something, they won't need to decide if there's something formal from you, but we probably do need something from you stating that you would like the board to look at this, or the planning commission to look at this and potentially the board to weigh in on this too, to say, is this going to be a village-initiated event, or are they gonna require, you as the applicant, or if your neighbors would also participate?
Something to get on the agenda for consideration, yeah.
And
So
then,
that's a typed letter, signed and emailed to you?
yeah,
Okay.
right, in the next meeting.
Okay.
Signed, but it can be email, letter, some type of correspondence with us in writing. And
Okay.
then, like I said, the question would be is, if you wanna talk to your neighbors before you submit that to see if they would be in favor of it. And the question would be, does the village wanna bear the cost of this, or do they want the cost to be bear upon the applicants? And then, from there, once that's determined, then the process can, if it's the village gonna do it, then the village just set up a timeline. If it's fair upon you guys, then you have the decision to say, okay, are we going to move forward with that cost to do this?
Would it help to have the neighbors in favor sign that piece of paper I'm sending you, or should they have to come to the meeting, or I don't know how that
Well, we'll put a sign on there, on your lawn, that there's a meeting coming up.
Well, no, not to the public hearing process. This is preliminary, just to see how we're gonna which
Oh,
process
oh.
we're gonna take.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's up to you if you want to have your neighbors there, you know, participate at this point or not. That's your decision. You know, I mean, it would maybe, I can't speak for the body, but sometimes more participation can be better from adjoining property owners than just one person trying to petition. And also, the board, like you were saying through tonight, will sit through a public hearing, and your neighbors may say, no, we don't want to have our parcel land use amended or things of that nature, so that, you know, can weigh on the body. So it can be a positive, can be,
Could be
you know,
a surprise.
detrimental too, but that's a decision as an applicant you will have to make.
Okay, during that discussion, I checked the Robert Rules of Order. So, and it's in our ordinances as well. Any member of the village board voting in the majority, well, I guess there is no majority, 2-2. You can reconsider at the same meeting. But
The
let's,
same person can't. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I don't know about that. But anyway, let's just table it. We'll bring it up
Well,
for
there is,
reconsideration.
there's a motion on the floor right
There's a
now.
motion on the floor. Yeah, we're under discussion, and then we'll bring it up next week. It's plenty of
And next
time.
week is fine.
Yeah, next week's fine too.
We
Let's-
just reconsider.
Yeah, we'll just reconsider at that time, and we'll
Or
have it on the
fifth
agenda, so
board
that
member
it'll
might
be
be here.
on the agenda. Okay? Any further discussion?
Do you need me here next week?
Probably
If you'd like
not.
to come, you can grace us with your presence. Yeah.
You're always welcome to come.
You're more than welcome to stay home. I mean, the board's talked about the outcome, but until they actually would vote that way, we don't know what the outcome would be.
Well, I thank you guys for hearing what I had to say and considering this, and we'll see where it goes.
Would be helpful if you have your history in order with dates for, when we look at the master plan.
For when I bought it, when we.
Yeah,
changed it.
right.
Okay.
Combine the
I'm all
lots,
here.
combine the lots and all of that, yeah.
Okay, I got it.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to table until February 16th, next board meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, aye. I made the motion, so.
You're voting yes?
No, yeah, I'm voting with the motion, yeah.
Yes, 4-0, unanimous table. Okay. Thank you. We got there. Village President's report, I have nothing really new to report here. I think we reported on, nothing new on Hein Newman, right, in last meeting. Same way with the checklists and developers agreement and so on. So we will go to minutes. So the first one up is December 14th. This is, the board approved these meetings at our last, so the Plan Commission needs to approve the minutes. There's some changes, and I think what the Plan Commission got was the board-approved version. So I will make a motion, Plan Commission, motion to approve the December 14, 2022 Joint Village Board and Plan Commission minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries, thank you. Now we're on to January 11th. This was last month, our public hearing that we started, so I think it was a late ad, or it got circulated just recently.
Yeah, I mean, they should have been in the packet, and there was two changes. One was to the item, I think item C, or item 4C. I believe it was the last motion there under village board. It was seconded by trustee Sawney. There was a spelling error there, and then in item 8, the motion was incorrect for the village board. It had agenda items 7, 8, and 9, and it's, the version in front of you just says now 7 and 8.
7 and 8, right?
So those were the only changes to the minutes from what was in your packet.
Oh, yeah, and 6D, did that get picked up, the typo? That's the one I saw right away. Yeah, 6D typo got picked up,
That might have been where the typo was.
yeah. Yeah, number 6, letter D was the
Yeah.
typo. Yep, that got picked up. And the 7 and 8 got, okay, I see it. So as revised, it was distributed. So we'll start with Plan Commission, no, I've lost my agenda. We'll start with Plan Commission. I'll look for approval, or I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for January 11th, 2023 Joint Village Board and Plan Commission meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion by Plan Commission? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Board. I'll make a similar motion to approve.
I'll make the silver motion second.
Board, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Oh, I meant to, can we back up just a little bit? Make sure, Dan, were you there from the beginning? I think you came late or not?
Yeah,
Is that noted in here? Sorry.
no.
Should it be? Yes.
Or you can,
You came in at about, no, you weren't here. No, you came in at this meeting was done by 8.
you weren't,
Oh, I wasn't here.
Now, just let me see if you were,
it's in there that it was. We can,
okay. So
Yeah,
I'll make a
I had
motion
that
to
other-
reconsider
I think,
approval of these minutes. Is there a second?
I'll still second that.
All in favor of reconsideration?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And I'll
So I'll
abstain.
make a motion to, oh my gosh, we're gonna have to go back to the Plan Commission too, to reconsider that.
You're not responsible for them showing up.
Exactly.
All right, we got the board, I got the board's attention, so I'll make a motion to approve this is a board motion to approve the Village of Vernon Joint Village Board and Plan Commission meeting minutes for January 11th, 2023, with the change that trustee DeGrave was not present. What else needs to be changed? Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
I was leaving my other meeting and Lorraine texted me and
We're
said,
done.
"We're done."
Any discussion by the board?
You saved me the mileage.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, I'll make a motion to the Plan Commission to reconsider these minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of reconsideration?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, so I'll make a motion to approve them. Similar motion to approve them, striking Daniel DeGrave as present. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Sorry about that. I probably should have asked that question before making those motions.
I had a temporary lapse of memory.
Plan Commission,
Motion to adjourn.
is there a second?
Second.
Plan Commission, all in favor of adjourning? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Board?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Negative. Don't we have to talk, don't we have a closed session tonight or no?
Nope.
Okay.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries. Opposed? We're closed.
Stuff that I'm like, only anything that mentions